Good evening, everyone. This is Random Encounter.
And this is Alvina.
And we welcome you to our February 2025 Game of the Month Post-Mortem of Shenmue 3 for ValiantGamers.com. You're probably asking yourself right now, wait a minute, Random, it's in the middle of March, and you would be right. This is a game, though. This is a game I feel like we needed more time to marinate in it, and Nicole, you were all too happy to indulge us.
Yeah, it was a little fun. I had wanted to get through the Battle Rally just because I had never played it, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to take that extra time that we had to just kind of delve into it a little bit and have a little bit more of a chill stream. And I think everyone had fun. I hope I'm correct. If I wasn't, then you can shun me publicly, but I don't know. It was fun looking for Bailu-chan and running and kicking and punching and,
Yes.
Shenmue stuff.
You are right. That is correct. Indeed. Is this player based? Yes, she is. Okay. I see the lens in chat. I think you guys can hear it, but I can't hear it, so let me do something. Let me do something to fix that. She was gracious enough to give me an extra day to prepare for this lovely post-mortem. And let me tell you something. If I had known just how busy this week was going to be, I might have pushed this off till next week. But I'm glad that we were able to do this right on time. But some things may not be working the way that I kind of want them to. So let's see. We will do sound alerts, monitor, and output. Somebody hit me up with the Delin, please. It was terrible. I hated it, and Bailu-chan should feel bad. I strongly disagree, Vox. I personally had a lot of fun watching you do Battle Rally, and since it was your first time doing it, what did you think of it?
It was definitely cute. I wouldn't mind. I have wanted to go back and find some more Bailu-chans, and also delve deeper into how it works. Because I was just kind of going at very surface level, and I have a feeling that if I looked to see if there were strategies online that people had found, I think that would have been cool as well. But I really just kind of wanted to go in blind, and no regrets.
It was a lot of fun. It was just, I wasn't expecting Daytona USA meets Shenmue 3, but I was like, okay, Yu Suzuki, you crazy madman. It was good.
Well, I was gonna say, you know who created, Shenmue, so
I mean,
only
you Suzuki. I mean, I know Sega's been around for a long, Jesus Christ, indeed, they've been around for a long time. But I feel like Sega really didn't hit their stride until Yu Suzuki came around. I mean, he basically created their arcade empire, the likes of which that we know of, right? Because a lot of their electromechanic games beforehand really were games that were made here and just imported to Japan. But he really, in a way, is their Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yes, and he was revolutionary not for just Sega, but he did so much pioneering of the 3D video gaming world in general. He really pushed that forward and caused a lot of people to try to also get on that level, as it were. But no, he's a legend. Also, I don't mean to interrupt. I don't hear sound alerts. Is that okay?
That's not surprising. Well, you should be hearing them on the stream. Are you guys out there hearing it? Because I'm hearing it now.
Well, I don't. I have the stream muted because I don't want the echo.
You're not going to hear it on Discord, so no.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I will trust you to let me know.
But you guys can torture me. You can torture me all day long. Actually, we probably will mute them in about 5 or 10 minutes. So go ahead and get them out of your system now. Thank you, Vox. Get them out of your system now. It'll be worth it. And then once we really hit brass tacks on the discussion, we'll focus on that discussion and then maybe open it up right before we close for the night. So as we have already firmly established in 3 games of the month here, you and we're big fans of the Shenmue series. That's no secret to anyone anymore. This was a rare unicorn in that I had not played this game. That was by design. For a lot of different reasons, I waited and waited, and then I heard some things that made me want to wait some more. I'm what you would call a patient gamer. There's very few games that I buy day one. And by patient, I mean I'm cheap. And I usually wait for games to go on sale. This would have been one of those games to be the exception. I loved Shenmue 1 and 2. Was really disheartened after a few years when I realized, Shenmue 3 is not forthcoming. Sega's in trouble. They're out of the console market. They're struggling to survive. And when Shenmue 2 came out, it was the most expensive video game ever made. It probably, I would be surprised if it wasn't still ranking somewhere high on a top 10 list.
I wouldn't be surprised either. But to your point, I think that most Shenmue fans are patient gamers. They have to be.
You have to. You absolutely have to be. After about 5 years of no sequel, I just resigned myself to the fact this is not happening. And that supernatural ending that just stuck with me from Shenmue 2 was never going to get resolved. I was like, you fucking dicks, how dare you do that to me? But it is what it is. It's like Shenmue is it's very much ingrained in the DNA of the game itself. It's not so much about the destination, it's the journey. And I had a wonderful journey with those games. So when it came to light that Yu Suzuki was pushing for a Kickstarter to bring this game back, I had some mixed feelings about that because I was happy that he still cared enough to really make the push for it, because he had been talking about it in media for years, but this was kind of a whole new level. And Kickstarter, this was really the prime of Kickstarter when it was a platform for some really interesting and novel projects. This, to me, being probably one of the greatest ones to appear on that platform so far. So I was curious, but also wary, because a lot of good things have come out of Kickstarter. A lot of bad things have either come out of Kickstarter or just not come to fruition at all. And Yu Suzuki, he is a man of good repute in the gaming community. He's no fly-by-night shyster. But still, just it being a crowd-funded thing just gave me a sense of unease. Am I alone in that? How did you feel when you first heard that this is going to be a thing on Kickstarter?
Well, I will be completely honest with you. The minute I heard there was a Kickstarter, I was like, where's the page so I can throw money at him? I know what you mean. I was definitely very nervous as well. But because it had taken so long and he had still I don't know how to really say this, but I guess you could just say I did have a degree of faith because of his reputation and because of what he had done. I had faith that he would rather do something right than do it at all. And if for some reason something wasn't working out with the Kickstarter, he would rather scrap the whole thing than make something that he was unhappy with. So I went through with cautious optimism, maybe a little bit more towards the optimism. And that's why I was a day one buyer, and that's why I funded the Kickstarter. And I would have given more and had a higher tier had I had the money, but I was like between jobs at the time. But I don't, that is how I felt about that.
And I think I just kind of went in the opposite direction, but it did make me happy to know that like the people that made this game still cared about it and wanted to really see it through. So I wasn't quite as eager to hop on the Kickstarter train. I don't know, because like with Kickstarter, it's a great thing, but the model of crowdsourcing is that it puts the risk squarely in the hands of the consumer. And that's a big ask. There's been few things I've backed on Kickstarter, and even something that as beloved as my Shenmue series, I still had some doubts. But it was very heartening to see that it quickly broke its original goal of 2 million. Like it raised over 6.1 or if not over, almost 6.5 million, which is incredible.
7.1 million.
Really?
7.1 million.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it hit like 6.4. Well, that's even better. And they had some crazy stretch goals too. And they of which they met most of. Like, I was looking at the Kickstarter page, and it looks like some of the stuff that they didn't meet still made it into the game anyway, like Kung Fu Mastery. Like, I feel like that was kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I don't know how much you looked into this. It looks like you did do some research. The crowdfunding raised 7.1 million, but with contributions from Sony and a few others of like non-crowdfunding, the total amount raised for the budget was 20 million.
Holy shit. Okay, so that was a lot more than I initially thought. Okay, well, that's still pretty cool. Did Sega kick any money in on that? Because I know at the very least that they gave him the license to kind of just do whatever he wanted to with the property.
They did not.
That's unfortunate, but
I think it was Sony and Deep Silver.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's more money than I thought that they had to work with, but I don't really think that changes kind of the notes that I have here or my views here, because still, if you compare that to the budgets of A-class titles, AAA games, that's shoestring.
I think it is absolutely shoestring, but I think that because of the team that Yu Suzuki assembled, some definite pros in the industry, they were able to use the budget that they did have in very wise and thrifty ways.
Oh yeah,
to get the most bang for their buck, and we will go more into that. But yeah,
we sure will. I have some thoughts about that. One of the fundraising perks that they didn't hit that I found the most interesting is Magic Maze. I think was the highest one on there, and I got to thinking, it's like, were they planning on doing like a roguelike?
I don't know. I don't know much about the Magic Maze, to be honest with you.
That was just the first thing that came to mind here, and I have to say, if the modding community really wanted to put themselves to it, I think it could work. I mean, hell, if you could put fucking Daytona USA to Kung Fu, right? Anything is possible, right?
Yeah, maybe like, what are you thinking? Like a roguelike that takes place maybe in like the Bailu village or between that and Languishan, where like you were kind of originally wandering around at the end of Shenmue 2.
Possibly,
like,
yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Something like that. If you're not wandering around in the wilderness, then I think that castle where the finale takes place would also be perfect too. Because that place was huge. I mean, the interior could look like whatever they wanted to make it.
It could be the Chrysler Building.
It could. Maybe with a touch more embellishment there. That's a very cool what if that's been on my mind the last couple of days. So, even though Nicole was very kind to buy me some extra time to get ready for this postmortem tonight, unfortunately, I've got to break with our tradition of having some music for you guys to enjoy tonight. Speaking of which, where did the music go? There we go. The backing music is back at least. We do like to typically listen to the soundtrack of each game that we play and pick out a few of our favorites and assemble those together for our communal enjoyment. Unfortunately, I do not have that ready for you guys tonight, and I do apologize about that, but if you'll do me a favor, sometime during the day tomorrow, log into ValiantGamers.com, and in the Shenmue mega thread that Nicole has been posting to, I will publish the Post-Mortem Team VG picks for you for your enjoyment. We'll have it unlisted on YouTube, so you're going to have to log into the forums to see what we chose.
Because I know I sent you like my picks. Is there any way we can get a little sneak preview of some of the things that you picked, or do we have to wait?
I'm sorry, Nicole. I think you're just going to have to wait like everybody else. I know. I'm
gonna have to go to ValiantGamers.com tomorrow. Kind of cool place.
It's nice. It's a cool place. We get together, talk about video games, a little hog cranking. Everybody has a great time. Yeah. So thank you guys again for your patience. I did just want to ensure that everything was up and running for tonight's stream. That was top priority. Because you guys are wonderful, and we do this for you.
Yes. That being said, would you like to just talk about the music and your thoughts on it, or is that going to be kind of lumped into the game, thoughts on the game? Or
I think we could touch on that separate of my proper...
story based? Did you think this one was based? If you thought this one was based, you're right.
All right, so Sarah got in the last voice clip there, so I have went on ahead and muted those for now. We will turn them back on towards the end of the stream. I do think I want to talk about that first and foremost before we get into the body of the review. One of the things that I complained the most about getting the Post-Mortems together for the other two games is how fucking difficult it is to gather all of the music together for Shenmue 1 and 2. There's all these different CDs and soundtracks and reissues, and they're not all together in one place. And I have to say, seeing Shenmue 3's soundtrack in its full assembled one-pieceness kind of glory, I know somebody out there wants to play the gory sound effects so bad, and I'm sorry I took that. I'm sorry I took that from you. But seeing that available on Bandcamp in FLAC for $30 was I mean, I went and bought it. We have it on Cole, so if you guys want to listen to it, it is there for your enjoyment. But you know, I will say, though we do have a music collection for you guys to enjoy, we strongly encourage you to support the artists that put this music out when you can. It's not cheap. It took their time. It took their effort, and we want to reward that. So I did. So I went and I bought the soundtrack and listened to it. I will say, I really enjoyed the music of Shenmue 3. A lot of it is reused music from the previous two games. That is not a bad thing. There's good things about that approach that I'll enumerate later, but it immediately...
I think we have a lot of same ideas on that.
I think...
I'm sorry. Hearing what you're saying, is putting a big grin on my face, because I think you and I arrived at the same... I think we're hive minding here. So go ahead.
And we're not done tonight. I think we're probably going to reach some more conclusions about the smart reuse of assets that they've done here. Really taking that money and running with it. The music was really good, including the original music specific to this game. I do have a very strange complaint, though. Well, I guess it's not strange, but I do have a complaint with the soundtrack that they put out. I'm thankful that they did it this way, but I hope that they do a remaster in the future, because I didn't have this problem with the actual in-game music while you were streaming, but the music is available on the soundtrack. The EQ just feels off. Or is that just me?
Well, I've done a lot of listening to the soundtrack, and I did a lot of playing of Shenmue 3, and I'll be honest, I didn't really notice a huge difference. So I'm not sure. I kind of did, and I don't know if it's just my imagination, but so one problem that music production has these days is everybody's reaching for loudness levels. They want their music to pop regardless of where you're listening to that music from, whether that's your cheap ass $10 earbuds at your ONN earbuds from Walmart, to a $500 production set of ear cans. They want your music to be loud and clear, but the problem is, if you're mixing for loudness but you're not really mixing for audio depth, having your highs and having your lows, it garbles the sound. It causes clipping, and I heard a fair bit of that in the soundtrack. And I don't seem to recall really hearing it much in the game. It also could be I wasn't just listening as closely, but sitting here just listening to the soundtrack, I was a little dismayed by that. And I would say I feel like I'm licking a gift horse in the mouth,
but I did pay for this music, so
Right.
I do hope that they do a remaster at some point, because apart from that, I am really happy that they made it all available to us in lossless format. That is truly the direction to go, and I hope that other developers take the same cue.
I am kind of curious, and I would like to maybe at some point, like you and I on a call sometime, you can explain to me like where it is specifically that you hear it to see if I can hear it. Also, have you listened to what you bought versus the version that is uploaded on Cole?
It sounds like we have I have what's uploaded on Cole. I listened to both and experienced the same issue. I think it's just it's the same exact soundtrack. What I would like to do is actually listen to the in-game cuts versus the cuts off the soundtrack, because I don't know, it's just something that I just noticed listening back. But again, I was paying more attention the second go around. I could show you what I'm talking about, like even in a spectrometer. Like if I loaded up the track in Audacity, I think you could kind of see where I mean, where everything is just really high towards the extreme high end, and where it hits the top, that's where you see the clipping.
I will have to listen to that, because I think that I have a pretty good ear, and I did not hear that. I am absolutely believing you. I would love to see that just so I can see what you're talking about at some point, but this is not the time for that.
It is my sole complaint on what is otherwise a great soundtrack, because the composition is fine. I have no argument hearing that old music and the new music. Just throwing that out there. Maybe I can elaborate more on the forums to see if I can substantiate that.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I believe you. I would like to hear specifically what it is so I can be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so one of the processes I do getting ready for a post-mortem is I'll take all the music that I use for like our ambient talk time, like you hear right now, BRB music, startup music, and I will do some processing on it. Mostly I use a MP3 has a standard called regain, where you can set gain levels on a track or album basis, and I'll just try to get the levels where they're just loud enough but nothing is clipping, because you would be surprised at how much music gets put out there that clips and sounds shrill at high volumes.
Yeah,
we do it because we care about the music. And we might be a touch on the spectrum, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So, normally this would be about the time that we would segue and sit down and listen to some music. I am looking forward to publishing that on the forums tomorrow. I will say though, before we actually move on to the review, I do have one real reason, Nicole, that I regret not being a backer for the Kickstarter campaign. Do you know what that reason is?
I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure I'll kick myself when you tell me, but why?
Don't think too much. It's really fucking stupid. So it had over 68,000 backers, which is incredible. But I just thought, it's just like, you know what? If I had the gumption to just put my balls on the table and give to the cause, I could have been the 69,420th backer. They were so close. They were within like less than 500, Nicole. It could have been, It could have been a wonderful thing.
Very, very nice.
Yes. Sorry. Jokes, long jokes with a bad payoff.
It's all about the long game.
Are we ready for a review?
Speaking of clipping, geez.
Yeah, well, look, I'm just loud. I'm just loud and obnoxious. That's just the way this rolls around here. I can't do anything about that.
Apparently loudness is what the people want, so.
Apparently. So, I think we were talking, you said you kind of wanted me to take the lead on this. Is that still your assessment?
Well, I mean, the way it is like recently, I honestly, with pretty much all of the postmortems, you've always just kind of been, hey, Nicole, what do you think? Ladies first. But like, I usually will go in, if it's a game I've never played before, I'm happy to like talk about my feelings for it. And then have you guys follow up. Thank you, Sarah, for the virtual ooh-aha. Anyway, but I am the person who played the game. You have not played this game before, so I was just kind of curious as to hear like the thoughts before like I said anything about it and my thoughts. I really just kind of want to know your virgin thoughts.
Well, I thank you for the tip of your fedora, the lady, and letting this straight white man be first. It's something that's unheard of in the society. But no, anyway, I appreciate that. I generally, we joke, but I do like to give the floor to Nicole first because she's usually pretty good at opening things up and getting the juices flowing and those questions rumbling around in my head. I
can go first if you want.
No, that's okay. That's fine. You've given me the floor. I'm going for it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say do it. Dot wave. Yeah, so we talked about, on top of being a little bit of a patient gamer that typically doesn't buy things from the get-go, Shenmue 2 left me some very conflicting feelings of, oh my god, this is even more of what I loved about Shenmue 1 in this big, beautiful Hong Kong Kowloon city. But that ending, though, just left me going, what? And then as time passed, it soured just a little bit in my mouth. So though I was happy to see Shenmue 3, one of my concerns was, is this it? Are we going to get not just some resolution from the previous games, but the resolution that we all want deep down? I'm pretty good at not getting spoiled on things if I don't want to be. Didn't read any reviews about the game. I did kind of keep up with the development process of the game, and at first I was a little bit worried with some of the initial screenshots that they were putting out there, very beta stuff. Those were unfounded because later on those were clearly placeholder graphics for better things to come. But my biggest concern, can they finish this? And though no major spoilers were had, it did. I was seeing general impressions wherever I'd go about this game that it didn't finish the fucking story, and I'm just like, I can't. I'm not emotionally ready for that heartbreak, and I just never bought the game, and I just said I'll play it one day, and then that day didn't come until you were like, come on, pussy, get in, we're playing Shenmue 3, and I was like, all right, fine. Yeah, so that is going to, I think, color a lot of my opinions here, so I'm just going to put that on the table. I will say, in hindsight, now that I have seen the game, I did go back and read some contemporary reviews of it, and Superri, or Superri, hello and welcome.
Superri.
They're a bad mother. Shut your mouth. And the reviews of the game that were contemporary seemed kind of on two sides of a fence, where the reviewers were either huge fans of the series and happy to see it returning and embellishing on those roots, to some people that maybe were not as familiar with the original two games and were not nostalgic as a result, and maybe left feeling a little mystified as to what is the appeal here.
Yeah.
Was kind of my impression. So also, out of full disclosure, I'm kind of on the side of the former. I found myself pleasantly surprised by not only how faithful this game was to its roots and its forebears, but now, with modern technology, I feel like some of the decisions in the original Shenmue games were made out of technical limitations and time, and even with their huge budgets, that there maybe were some compromises made along the way, and here, they made choices in terms of like the design of the character models, the design of the gameplay, voice direction, everything. Now it's like, okay, they know what this game is about, and they're leaning hard into it. And it seemed to put off some reviewers back then, but I personally, I respect that commitment to the bit.
Yes. Can I kind of...
Of course.
So a lot of the people who had a lot of bad things to say about the game, a lot of them said the game was either outdated, because it was falling back on the same thing that Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2 did.
Yeah.
And there was nothing new, and it was just the same. It's been 18 years. Why is there nothing new? And then the other part of the other camp was kind of like, why isn't this like, I don't know. I had it and it left me, but like other people were just complaining that it was like too cheesy and so some people said it was like too old school. And then some people were saying that it wasn't old school enough and it was doing too many new things, and it's just like, well, what do you want this game to be? Like, what is this game? What can this game be that would make you happy? Like, it's not going to be Yakuza. It's never going to be. Is that what people want? Are people just kind of looking like the Yakuza series is great, and Sarah made a great post about it on our forums. And I enjoyed playing it.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Excellent play-by-play analysis as you played along. You actually kind of had me wanting to play the Yakuza game myself. Yeah. So that puts Shenmue 3 at a very interesting position, and I'm sure that wasn't lost on Suzuki and his team when they were really committing to making this game. It's like, what do? We have a set of diehard fans that love this game and everything that it stands for, and we don't want to alienate longtime fans. We want to throw them all kinds of frickin' bones here.
Right.
But the success of not just this game, but any future games to follow to wrap this up, really also count on bringing new blood in that see something in this that they can like too. And you don't want to alienate them by just strictly pandering to the likes of Shenmue oldies like us. So that's and so much time had passed between the last game and this one that I think that only just exacerbated things too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with what they did. There were some things that I'm not a huge fan of, like the whole losing stamina thing. Although that was to kind of extend the game out a little bit in the early stages, so that you would have to spend more time getting money, chopping wood, all of that kind of stuff to make that last longer. However, as you leveled and you build up your endurance doing horse dance and the like, that became a lot less of a problem. So, but the thing like the mini map, there was no mini map in Shenmue. You just had to remember where everything was in Dobuita, which made it more realistic. But in today's modern, fast-paced world, it was so nice to have a mini map. So they did a lot of quality of life things that I appreciated and did modernize it a little bit. But they kept a lot of what I really loved about Shenmue in there. So continue.
So yeah, with the mini map, they kind of had to, because as much as I love Shenmue 1, going back and watching you play that again and then playing it myself, and then seeing Shenmue 2 in comparison, and then even Shenmue 3 at the same time, Dobuita is really small. It's not that big. Like, the scope of that game is so small compared to 2 and 3. And I don't love Shenmue 1 any less, but at this point, they kind of didn't have a choice in the matter, but I am glad that they gave us that. In terms of the stamina mechanic, I was going to kind of hold off on mechanics, but since you brought it up, to me, I didn't hate it. It's just that it felt incomplete. And considering the relatively small budget that this game had with a relatively small team to make this dream work, there's very few things in this game that felt unfinished. This was really the only one that I can tell you off the top of my head that I feel was half-baked. The pun's going to work here in a second, because I think that they needed a cooking mechanic.
Yeah.
Because let's
That was
face it, who the fuck? I mean, I don't care if you're the most Italian person that's ever walked this earth. Not
me.
anybody here that would match that description.
Not me.
Nobody is just sitting around shoving black garlic into their mouth. Oh boy, I'm famished. I've been doing kung fu all day. Let me just shove some raw garlic down my gullet. And some of the other foods that were available to you, and it just seemed to me like this begs for a cooking mechanic.
Yeah.
Did it not occur to them? Was it something that they considered as a donation push, but just never got around to and focused on other things? Because that if you put the cooking mechanic in just by itself, just a cooking mechanic to make yourself food, to keep yourself sustained, I think that would have been entertaining. But since a lot of the gameplay centers around you doing odd jobs to make money for things, I also think if you could have an odd job cooking for money, you already have a system right there to go to. Maybe it could be a way of training you how to use that system.
I'm going to devil's advocate a little bit here.
Okay.
Although I think that cooking would have been really fun and I would have enjoyed it had they put that in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening just because of the character of Rio. He is it. I mean, it's the 80s. It's, he's a Japanese teenager. He had Ine-san to cook for him. He had Shenmue to cook for him. He didn't really do cooking in any of the other games. So to add a cooking mini game now all of a sudden would seem maybe a little bit out of place.
I don't think so. And the reason why is that Ryo's situation has greatly changed since the time that he was living under Ine-san's roof in Japan. And now he has to fend for himself. Yeah, he's got Shenmue there to maybe cook and help him with some snacks. But at the same time, is it any less realistic than literally just spending all day chopping wood? Because I did not hate that minigame mechanic. It was a lot of fun, as our chat logs would indicate to you. I enjoyed watching you do it, but I don't think that's any more realistic or reasonable than a poor immigrant who needs spending money in a foreign country. One of the first things that immigrants typically do in a country is they do jobs that are easy for them to get to. And if that's just being a dish dog or like a line chef, a cook somewhere, that's one of the first things that they do. And it actually would be on point because we talked about just that in Shenmue 1 with the 3 blades.
3 blades. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I will have to disagree with you there, but I just think it would have fleshed it out a little bit and turned that stamina mechanic into something less onerous.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I mean, I would have liked it. Like I said, I don't see it, but if they had done it, I wouldn't have been mad about it. Just
sure.
On the same note that you were not mad about the chopping mini game, but blah blah blah.
I wasn't.
That being said,
God, that has to be so exhausting, though. Like, could you imagine just how sore he is from chopping wood all day and then doing karate? Like, he must feel like a 50-year-old man by the time he goes to bed every night.
I personally would have liked to have that build up your endurance, but it did not.
I agree with you there, 100%.
Also, if they had included a cooking mini game, that would have been a great way for them to show off all of their amazing food assets in that game.
I can't tell you how many egg rolls I've eaten over the course of the last month, and I've always liked egg rolls. But I've turned into an egg roll fiend, where so I spend 3 days of my work week working in office, and there is a Chinese restaurant down one road from where I work, and then there's a gas station down the road on the other side that makes pretty good blue plate lunches and carry out things. They also make egg rolls too that are really cheap. And between that and my Aldi shopping, now they have easy access to egg rolls. I can't stop, Nicole. I've got a problem, and it's your fault. All your fault.
As an Italian woman, hearing that I'm making you eat a lot of food, I feel very accomplished.
the nana inside of you is just pinching her fingers together, capisco. Hey, Skunkworks, welcome. So before I go any further, Super Rye and Grimace had some really good things to say, and I don't want to leave you guys thinking I ignored it. I really didn't get the sense that the game was outdated. I did feel like it was more Shenmue, but that's what everybody wanted. Exactly. And I fall squarely into that camp where Shenmue 3, I felt these guys had a vision, and they leaned hard into the things that people liked, and perhaps that was alienating to people that are not as nostalgic for the games as we are. I think it made it fun. It gave this game, on top of other things that we'll discuss in a little while, a sense of character that, this is complete ownership. It's like they took this second chance and just ran with it. And you could feel that in every aspect of this game. Loved it. And then Super Rise says, I can totally see people not really getting into the original games these days due to limitations. Yeah, fair enough. This game was awe-inspiring when it came out, absolutely. But the whole waiting aspect in the first one was a big negative, and the intention was for the player to explore the game as much as possible, but that's why they took that out for the second one. Yeah, that is a thing that's hard to revisit in the original. And this game, I never felt like you were you were chopping wood and playing games and stuff because it was fun to do if you wanted to pass the time, but I never felt like you were just arbitrarily doing things because you felt like you had to do it. And I do think that they did a good job in that regard.
I agree.
I did not like the games that you could play in 3. Well, part of the problem is Sega was generous enough to give Yu Suzuki the license to Shenmue. I do think that if they couldn't have given monetary support to the project, the very least that they could have done was give him access to some of his fucking arcade games. I mean, seriously, would it have really killed them to give us Outrun?
Hang On.
Yes. Yeah, any one of those would be fantastic.
Harrier.
Right. I mean, it's pennies on the dollar. If they wanted like a fraction of percent of its sales, it would have been worth it. But dick move, Sega.
They keep on taking down their Sega collections on like Steam and other marketplaces. So if they're not even going to have their games available on things like places like Steam or the PlayStation Network or Xbox Game Pass, why not have it in Shenmue 3?
This is why I love emulation. I ordered a Mr. Pi unit that batch is still in production, but once I get it, I will be flexing that on some streams in the future, maybe playing some of those hard to reach Sega games that they just won't let us have. I think Shenmue 3 would have been even better with those. It's just the legality of it was not in Suzuki's favor, and it would have been nice. Yeah. Would have been really nice.
It would have been really nice in a perfect world where he had the budget to just design another game and be like, fuck you, Sega. Design a whole new Space Harrier.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So Super Rye asked, what did you guys think of not being able to progress the story without increasing your kung fu? Now, so as a viewer, I didn't have a problem per se, so I would have to defer that question to Nicole. Nicole, what do you think of it?
I spent so much time grinding off stream that my kung fu was never a problem. That being said, if I did run into that, it would have been a little bit annoying. But I am of the generation who is used to playing games that involve some degree of grinding, of being a certain level to go past a story, level cap things. It's kind of what I'm used to.
A cap is like a limit, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
If you know, you know. I don't think it bothers me all that personally because really, like we discussed earlier, Shenmue as a series is about an overreaching, journey in Ryo's life of becoming this child of, great trauma and loss to becoming a young man who realizes himself. And, if that doesn't involve some kind of training to better your skills, I think it kind of misses the underlying point of Shenmue. So I guess it doesn't bother me all that much.
Was there ever a part that you got stuck and needed help or had to refer to a strategy guide? No. Um, Not like I did in Shenmue 2. That not that I needed a strategy guide, but don't you at the end of Shenmue 2.
Oof.
Y'all were there. Y'all were there.
Yeah, so the quick time events are back in this game. I mean, they are quintessentially Shenmue. And
They
other
are.
games have them, I think, really kind of in part because of Shenmue. In Shenmue 1, they were fine. In Shenmue 2, they were kind of brutal and everywhere and overbearing.
Yes.
How, as a viewer, it seemed to be a lot better in Shenmue 3. Was that your estimation as well?
I would say the QuickTime events were one of my favorite things about Shenmue 3. I thought it pretty much struck a good balance. I don't think there were too many QuickTime events, but the ones that were there made sense. They were not necessarily forgiving, but they didn't punish you if you missed them. You didn't have to go through and do this whole thing and like sit there and memorize this long thing because you're like, okay, Preston X got to come up and Preston left got to come up, and you just memorizing it, and that was like so awful.
Yeah.
Yes, the yellow head building in Shenmue 2 was like walking across those planks. Those were, yeah, you had to memorize, and it was very, very hard.
I don't mean to brag, but I'd like to think I'm pretty good at the quick time events in Shenmue. But I will say the Shenmue 2 quick times were just as bad as I remember them. They were so frustrating back in the day, and it really it seemed like in Shenmue 3 the timings were a little bit tighter, not in a bad way. But again, it was just better, and everything was just so better paced out in that regard.
One thing that I really appreciated is very little thing, but when the QuickTime event, like when the button would appear on your screen, there would be a visual indicator of how long you had to press that button.
Exactly.
And I loved that. And I thought that was very, very helpful. And I also think if you did fail, the game made it a lot more entertaining than it did in previous games.
Definitely to Grimace's point, where the failures were not always such a setback, but in some cases you kind of wanted to fail just to see what would happen. Yeah, this game, it is a little more self-aware than the previous games, and that sense of humor, and there's a real sense of humor there that it leans hard into. I really just feel overall that everything in Shenmue 3 is, even if it's not totally new, as new as some people would have liked to have seen in this game, it is a good refinement and distillation of everything that we enjoyed from the previous games, taking out a lot of the frustrating elements. I did think of this though, and I want to see if you felt the same way. Part of the appeal of Shenmue is not just the story and the setting and the characters. Well, I say not the setting, but it is kind of the setting where Shenmue 1 was famous for taking place in Yokosuka, in Dobuita, and having such an attention to detail of how that place would have looked in the 80s, down to the fact that the weather patterns matched day by day the same weather patterns that unfolded in Yokosuka back in the 80s. And then you get to Shenmue 2, and you have Hong Kong in all of its 1980s glory, and Kowloon. And then you get to Bailu Village, and then you get to Niaowu. And I loved Bailu. Bailu was a calm spot. I think you probably took my complaint of when the hell are you going to get out of Bailu as a complaint, but if my work week was really hectic, I could always log in and watch you just hanging around in Bailu, and it was so relaxing. And I love to spend time there. The only thing that I think Shenmue kind of loses in regard to its setting that the other games have is that it is slightly less grounded than the other two games because these are fictional settings. Is that something that came to your mind too?
I believe Niaowu is not a fictional setting, but I could be wrong.
I looked it up, and I don't see. It's heavily based on Guilin City, and some other cities like it in southern China. I mean, it clearly is heavily inspired. It's not just made up out of whole cloth, but it's not.
Someone actually mentioned. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say someone in the game actually mentioned that Niao was just a part of Guilin City.
Maybe. I don't know, because I tried to look it up. I was curious, like, is this a real place in southern China? And the sources I found were referring to it as the fictional city of Niaowu.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I know what you mean. I guess Niaowu specifically isn't, but someone in the game did say that Niaowu was part of Guilin City. So I guess, if anything, it was just, they didn't refer to it as Guilin City, but someone in the game did. I don't know.
I guess the point was more like, I kind of wish that Niaowu was a little bit closer to being actual Guilin City, a place that has discernible real life landmarks like the previous games. But it's not a huge deal. Like, I'm not docking points here. I do I guess that was just one thing that I kind of missed after we were spoiled by all these kind of real life settings that added to that immersion.
Well, if and we'll talk about Shenmue 4 towards as we get closer to the end, but
baby, don't break my heart like that. Don't do it.
If there is a Shenmue 4, it is supposedly going to take place in Shanghai. So
Ooh, okay. All right. No, I'm all right. I'm just going to put that out of my mind here. Because I've got thoughts about how this game made me feel, but I think it's fair to say you can kind of see that I enjoyed watching you play this game. I had fun, right? Yeah. So basically, in terms of just my general remarks about the overall game and then the gameplay, I thought the gameplay was fine. I thought that the complaints that people were mentioning in some of these contemporaneous reviews were not particularly fair. And that I think this game really brought what worked from the original games and just made it better, took the jank out. The quick time events were much better paced. We understand why we couldn't get the arcade games, but the games that they gave us instead, maybe they're not everybody's taste, but I had fun watching it. And really, the best thing that I can say about the gameplay is just how, and maybe you can confirm because you actually were playing, had the controller, it just seems smoother. Like, gone are these tank controls, but Ryo just seems to move and he seems to fight just so much better.
Yes. It looked better. It felt better. The fighting seemed more natural. I will go into combat later. I have one complaint about it, and
well, why don't you
mention it now?
Go into combat now. I have to know.
Okay. So one of the things I always loved about the Shenmue series is that it was essentially just Virtua Fighter the RPG.
Right.
So it felt a lot like you were playing a Virtua Fighter game, right down to the moves. Like, one of the first things that you teach Fukasan is how to do, I forget the name of the move.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It was like the Hazuki special move, and it's like forward punch, and like that is something that they completely took out. Like, I really do like the Kung Fu Mastery system, but there are no directionals. You don't move forward and hit punch. You just hit punch, and you hit like B and A, or X and Y and B, and it's just like all buttons and no directionals.
Yeah. And
because they took 4 buttons out of the equation, it made it a lot more cumbersome in that way.
Okay.
By letting you choose sets of moves to execute with one of the triggers, it kind of bypassed the need to remember complex moves that were just a bunch of buttons. But the fighter game fan in me was not a huge fan.
Okay.
But again, not a huge complaint to the point where I'll say this game is crap. I still enjoy the game. And that is when I said, I think a couple games ago, when we were talking very briefly about Shenmue 3, I think I commented, like, they castrated the combat, which, like, I said, and I immediately was like, well, that isn't really fair to say, but it sounded good when I said it. So I just kind of went with it. But
never let logic get in the way of a good soundbite.
Exactly. So that is what I meant by that. They took out some of the complexity, but while also making it more complex. But overall, I like the combat. So that's what I have to say about that.
It's like they weighed their focus on different elements of the fighting style differently this go around. And I will say, this might be a controversial take here. I was looking forward to the original Shenmue and loved playing it, not because I was a huge fan of Virtua Fighter. In fact, I like Virtua Fighter, but I was always more of a Street Fighter and Tekken and Soul Calibur kid myself. So I didn't necessarily have the great attachment to Virtua Fighter that some of the other fans coming into Shenmue would have. So I enjoyed the battle systems of Shenmue 1 and 2, kind of in spite of how clunky I felt like they could be at times.
It was clunky looking, and it felt kind of clunky.
Yeah.
One thing I did love about 3 is I could tell just by watching it, even though I was focused mostly on fighting, it looked better.
Yeah, it was so buttery smooth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't really comment on the actual mechanic. It is something that I would like to try firsthand. But I had a lot of fun watching it compared to sometimes like the 70-man battle from the first game is iconic, but also that is a stressful battle because sometimes Ryo just doesn't want to cooperate and do the things you want him to do. And that just really didn't seem like it was a problem here.
Yep. No, it was not a problem. And another thing that made it easy was that, I mean, I have to be completely fair here. I ground out my attack, endurance, and kung fu till they were all max. I did not put as much work into my playthroughs of Shenmue 1 and 2.
And I can vouch for it, folks. I could see it. I see that little Althena's playing Shenmue 3, and I'm like, burning the midnight oil, huh?
Yeah. But I wanted to do this game right, from start to finish, and give everyone the best viewing experience. So I spent a lot of time. A lot of that time that you saw me playing, I was gambling. Don't tell Shenhua.
Oh man, it really is just a Chinese smoking and gambling simulator at the end of the game. At the end of the day, isn't it? Minus the smoking. Yep. Well, I mean, I think we've pretty much summed up our thoughts on the gameplay here, and we did talk a little bit about the music earlier. I have no problem with the actual compositions of the music. I thought, by and large, they made some really smart choices with what music they pulled from the old games, and I like the work that they did with the new tracks. And all in all, I think that they took that $20 million budget and stretched every single dollar. And one of the ways that that's possible was in their smart reuse of assets. Not just the music, but also I feel like in other places of the game too. Because why reinvent the wheel twice? You know, you've already got perfectly good things to use here. We've already seen that once before in our gaming careers, Nicole, with Final Fantasy XIV did the same exact thing. A game series that was almost, well, not the series, well, maybe. 14 1.0 came out and had a very, very bad go. It was so bad that they needed to redesign that game. A lot of people here are fans of the series. I won't rehash that. The point that I'm trying to make for people not familiar with that story is that one of the ways that whole revival was so successful and just possible is they were very smart about taking the assets and work they had already done and using it smartly. And I saw almost the same exact thing here in a lot of regards too. You know, it's like we don't have a AAA budget, so we have to make this work the best way possible. And I thought from the music as well as even some of the graphics, they did that and it worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like Super Rai says, using the Unreal Engine's very helpful. You don't have to invent a whole new engine bespoke like they had to back in Shenmue 2. Epic has kind of taken that guesswork out for us.
Yes. I think one of the smartest things that they could have done is take the soundtrack from, Shenmue 1 and 2, reuse some songs. They got Ryuji Aichi back to do some original songs, but not a lot of songs.
Yeah.
Just enough to just make things a little interesting. He still got it. He's only 49. He's still relatively young. And one of the most brilliant things is that they used a lot of Shenmue music that was old, that was never used in Shenmue.
Yeah.
Like music from 20 years ago that just never made it in. And they used it, and they had it, and it was beautiful, and it was fantastic. But they used it, and that was so smart, because then they didn't have to pay all of that money, and they could put that in other places.
Exactly.
And I thought that was brilliant.
Exactly. So what they did have to spend, I thought it really showed. In terms, so the music, the sound though. Again, we talk about Shenmue 3 there's a conviction here that I see that isn't as obvious with the previous two games, in that they took what is quintessentially Shenmue and really leaned into it. But they also did it with the sound work too. They were grand enough to bring the legendary Corey Marshall back to reprise his role as Ryo. They brought back the Japanese voice actor for Ryo as well. And a lot of the other actors in the various languages of the games got to reprise, and it feels so good.
It feels so good. When I first played Shenmue 3 originally, and I heard him start talking, I was just like, I'm back home.
It
was such a great feeling.
My one gripe might be that they spent too much time and dialogue on the Verdant Bridge, like it didn't have that much to do with the story. So that is something that I will kind of touch on later. Super Ride, that's a good point. Shenmue is a series that has lots of ideas, and Yu Suzuki is such a grandmaster that he was never scared about trying to make as many of those ideas work as he could. And sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't, and that, I think that'll really, if you'll stick around, that's going to affect my final appraisal of the game, and you shall see how. I feel like such a clickbaiter YouTuber right about now. What Random Encounter says next may shock you.
You won't believe.
Top 10 reasons why Random was absolutely flabbergasted by Shenmue 3. Yeah, I was so happy to see him come back. What I will say, though, I was utterly shocked when that second to last stream you told us that the voice work for Ren and Lan Di was done by Eric Kelso in the original games, but was not actually present for the first run of Shenmue 3, but was in fact a mod. That blew my fucking mind.
Dude, I told you that I did that when I first installed Shenmue 3 on the PC. I'm like, hey, guess what? I installed a mod, and I was telling you about that.
I forgot. I'm sorry. I did not remember. But
it's all right.
I remember it now, but the fact that, like, Eric Kelso didn't, I guess, I don't know if he took any payment for that, but even if he did, the fact that he didn't have to put that work in, but worked with the community to fucking do that. And we know that Corey Marshall is he's not just the president of the Shenmue fan club, he's also a client. He loves these games as much as we do, and it shows. The love for this series is evident from the voice actors to the development team, and I do think that respect is just makes you feel good.
To answer Super Rai's question, yes, there was a mod that had a voice pack with the original voice actors for Lan Di and for Ren. And it did not... I think he also did the redubs for the phone calls as well, like, because you can call Fuxan. I think he did the redubs of the Fuxan phone calls because it sounded like him when you called him. You You did have to install mods on how to do that. If you want to learn how to do that, we can talk about it in on the Valiant Gamers forum.
Yeah, so I'm really happy with the music and sound by and large. Really happy with the gameplay here. And the graphics were a pleasant surprise too, because initially when I saw those beta screenshots coming out of their work in progress on Shenmue 3, I was a little concerned, but also mindfully trying to say, okay, this is still a work in progress. Hopefully it'll get better. And I am happy to say that what I saw here, I really probably think that's where a lot of this money went, was just in, let's take what we have and just make this world feel and look immersive. Pure success. I think this game looks fantastic. I was not expecting it to look as good as it did. It took me a second to get used to Ryo having a slightly kind of more filled out face than in the first two games, but it really didn't take me all that long to make my peace with it, because the rest of the game just looked so fucking good.
I think this game was absolutely gorgeous. I remember playing it for the first time and just imagining, like, thinking to myself, like, this is obviously, you can always get better, but I was just thinking, like, this is the way that it was originally envisioned. Like, when you think of, like, creating a game, like, this is what you want, like, especially in the end of the Shenmue, in the end of Shenmue 2, when you are going through the forests, and you come across, like, flower fields, and they're just like clumps, they're like ugly lumps of flowers.
Yeah. Versus
like the flower fields of Bailu Village, like, this was what they envisioned, and it was good to see it realized.
Yeah. I mean, I really think, Grimace, when you brought up the Unreal Engine, it's like you have a look into my show notes that I've written just for this moment here, because I commented, quote, "Good use of the Unreal Engine, not just in gameplay, but in presenting visuals. Really did just allow them to do the things that would have been utterly impossible to do with their original engine." It just shocked me just how good it looked. And granted, it maybe doesn't look as good as a AAA or AA title of its era, but just considering what they had to work with in the time that they did, every penny was well spent in this project.
Yeah. I think this game, this whole Kickstarter thing, from start to finish, was the perfect example of when you get a good group of goddamn professionals doing the job that they were meant to do and executing it well. And
definitely
it was very satisfying to see. Just to quickly touch upon a few questions that Super Rai had. I don't know if we will see Yondazu again. I don't think we have plans of going back to Hong Kong anytime soon, but who knows? He might come to Shanghai or wherever they go. As for your other question, it's not really a translation issue. It's kind of like a switch of back when they originally came out with Shenmue 1 and 2, it was a lot more common to reverse the names to conform to, like, Western protocol. It was not quite so much the case when Shenmue 3 came out. Right down to very little things that you would notice. Like, if you called Nozomi, Ryo would say, "Hello, Harasaki." He never called her Harasaki in Shenmue 1 in the English dub, but it was a lot more appropriate for a teenage Japanese boy to call a schoolmate by their family name.
Right.
So just little tiny things like that.
It is a little inconsistent, though, because I do notice in Shenmue 1, they used, with Chinese names, and even with Japanese names, it's supposed to be, but with Chinese names, it is last name first, and they stuck to that in Shenmue 1. Then they seem to reverse the order in Shenmue 2 and kind of stick with that here. What also further confuses the issue, too, is though the names are presented to us in Pinyin, in Mandarin Pinyin, it sounds like they're pronouncing it with a bit of a Cantonese inflection instead. Yeah. Like one, it looks like you would say Wan Chai in Shenmue 2, but they're saying Wan Zai, which is closer to how the Cantonese would have said it.
Right. But in Shenmue 3, they say Wan Chai.
So, yeah, it's not as bad as Dynasty Warriors 3 saying cow cow, but it is a little mystifying otherwise. So
Sokun.
Oh, yeah. And that's a whole other hill of beans too, because the Japanese pronunciation of these Chinese names is way, way out there. So we've covered the graphics, we've covered the music, we've covered some of our initial impressions of the game. The biggest one by far, definitely for me, but also maybe for you, Nicole, is going to be the story. But I have to pee so bad. And I know everybody on the internet needed to know that. But we're going to take a little bit of a break, refresh our drinks, empty our bladders. Hope you guys do the same. And when we come back, I'm going to actually let you take point on story because I have a lot of thoughts. And on that one, I want to go last, okay?
Okay.
So stick around, guys. We'll be back shortly. Yes,
Yes.
that's it.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way.
Yeah.
And we're back after a little bit of chopping wood and making water.
That sounds like a good recipe for tea.
Don't put that in your tea. Okay. So I definitely want us to close out the review tonight with the story, which I think is the most important thing about Shenmue, the thing that have kept players holding on as long as they have. But I must insist, Nicole, when you finally got to enjoy this beautiful game after that long wait, what did you make of the story?
So I definitely want to go over the story. I don't know if that's the last thing I want to go over. I want to go over the story and then your thoughts of the story. I would like to give my number, my review number, and then rating rather. And then I also want to talk a little bit about the future of Shenmue, and what the plans are and what we think about, Yu Suzuki's plans. And then I want to go into that too. That being said, going into the story, I'm trying to read an account on your website, but it's saying there is an error with the reCAPTCHA and to contact an admin.
Okay, so yeah, I know what's going on with that. Google has done some upgrades to reCAPTCHA recently, and I have got to do some upgrading on the back end. So here's what we will do, Super Rye. We will get you an account created. If you will send one of us a PM on Twitch with your email address, we'll get you an account, give you a temporary password, and get you logged in, so you can change that as soon as possible. And we will get that straightened out after the stream.
Thank you very much for wanting to join, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the whole point of the shindig, is we want people to be part of the community. So when we inevitably play other games, you guys can be there for that too. Yes.
So anyway, I'm gonna go into my thoughts on the story now. So I actually liked the whole Verdant Bridge thing. We started, pretty much exactly where Shenmue 2 ended. And getting to the Verdant Bridge, and being met with these two guards, I was instantly intrigued by it. They kept on referring to it, and I definitely wanted to know more about it. Was the payoff eventually worth it? Kind of. I mean, I thought it was really interesting that it was built for the Emperor's envoy. I think that added a layer of mystery to the mirror and their purpose and their reason for the creation. And it was also intriguing to finally climb up the bell tower for the first time, and to see the inside and it being all like gorgeous and ornate inside, and it was definitely very intriguing. That's the closest that we got to anything else that was really supernatural, though, and that was a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to see some, I guess, okay, the other thing that would be, you could say, was a little on the supernatural side was Shenhua's interrogation of the thug in Bailu Village.
Ding dong.
Exactly. Oh, you got it to work. Super Rye is my account. It says it just needs activation by an admin. Okay, we'll work on that, Super Rye. Thank you again.
Yeah, we'll get you approved. Is this based? You'd be right. What did she do to him? I guess when wondering what it is that she did with that bell to get him to talk, I didn't necessarily take that in a supernatural direction. I just took it in the third grader's direction of, oh, she totally beat his balls with it, or something like that. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I guess maybe one day we'll find out. Well, we definitely don't find out here. No. Yeah, one of the biggest gut punches here in Shenmue 2 was that ending where it's like, whoa, wait a fucking minute. Like, there's lasers and swords and what? What is
Floating
that?
Swords?
Well, yeah. Floating swords distributed by caverns. There's no basis for a system of government. But in all seriousness, I thought that was a very interesting direction to take the game, and it felt, I guess, it shouldn't have felt like it came out of nowhere, because you wonder what is the significance of these mirrors and why the hell do they matter so much that people would murder over them? It's got to be something real. And as the series unfolds, we're told it's the key to restoring the Qing dynasty, the very last dynasty of China before the communists took over after their civil war. And it's like, okay. I will say that with that in mind, I am still like scratching my head here. It's like, okay, but why? Why the Qing dynasty? Why not a new dynasty? I mean, really, that's a cornerstone of Chinese history, is a new dynasty arising when the old one loses its luster and falls apart. So what is this? What is this obsession with the Qing dynasty? Why do the mirrors matter? Why are there floating swords? Just let me finish. Why are there floating swords? And I will say, though it's not as disappointing by the end of Shenmue 3 that we don't quite get answers to those questions. The fact that we don't have answers, it doesn't sting as bad, but it still stings a little bit.
Yeah.
Now you can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I guess you could argue that since the mirrors were created by order of the Qing dynasty, that they would want to preserve their dynasty, not create a new one. And that's where the power of the mirrors came from. And we still don't know the nature of the mirrors. Like, people have said it's the secret of the treasure of the Qing dynasty. And that's what, is motivating Ren to follow Rio around. And, there has been talk of like it's going to cause like a supernatural end of the world to summon a monster, to have a dragon come down from the heavens or come up from the earth or whatever. So no one really knows what the mirrors do, and they've never been. I mean, they have been close to each other because they've both been at the Hazuki Dojo in different spots for many, many years. But we've never seen them like actually interact together.
Suddenly Shinbuzilla. Indeed. I've also got a second Usupra. That would have been my go-to thought back in the day too, is like, these are a map to something greater because it's a map to the treasure. But then again, it just leaves you wondering, well, what the hell is that treasure? What the hell is this creature? Also too, some people online, as I was reading going into this, were pointing out that if you really think about it, there really ought to be 4 mirrors, because you have the dragon, you have the phoenix, but as we know in the Chinese zodiac, you also have the tiger and
the turtle.
The turtle. Thank you, good old Gimbu. And would that have come up too? And ultimately, Shenmue 3. Though I feel like to a lesser degree than Shenmue 2 and the whole Shenmue as a whole suffers from a person with a grand imagination and a vision, but sometimes a floundering sense of focus, and maybe nobody there to say no, or somebody to say, let's wait. It reminds me a lot, if you read about the creation of the game Doom back in the day. There's a huge Doom Bible that they wrote internally at id Software with all these ideas that they wanted to make Doom. Tom Hall was responsible for that Bible, but everybody kind of had a hand in it. And there's just so many ideas that they had that didn't make fruition. That just due to time and it just didn't work out that way. And I feel like most games in the development process have a similar Bible of sorts, where there's all these ideas, but you kind of have to know what to filter out. And something has kind of gone awry here, where all of these grand ideas don't really get held back and get thrown out there, but with no clear plan to see a payoff.
So to answer your question about the 4 aspects, it was stated somewhere in the game that the mirrors were created to symbolize the Emperor and the Empress. That the Emperor was the dragon and the Empress was the phoenix.
Okay, all right. So that makes sense. That answers one of my burning questions. But
yes,
the Shenmue games have been so good at raising all these plot tangents, but having a hard time tying those knots up.
Yes, and that is why Yu Suzuki has said that in a perfect world he would like to have 6 games.
I will put a period on that sentence here momentarily, but that is but without really going hard into some things that I didn't like about the story, I do want to focus on what I loved about the story. And the thing that I think Shenmue 3 is most successful at is showing
my thoughts?
Not yet.
Okay.
I just think that Shenmue 3 is extremely successful in having us watch Ryo grow. Like, I see him grow more in this game than I did in any other game in the series. And it also could just be, too, the voice actors feel more comfortable in their direction, and everybody feels more comfortable with the whole direction that this game wants to go. But to me, that was the most satisfying thing about the game, is just watching Ryo really start to warm up and develop a personality of his own. What are your thoughts?
So as I was going to say, one of the things I like the most about Shenmue 3 is watching Ryo grow and see him really develop as a character and go beyond what he had ever gone before, to actually learn how to rely on other people, which he had always done very begrudgingly in Shenmue 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. He was friends with Tom. He was friends with Joy, but he always acted very begrudging about it. But you can really see him kind of develop his personality, almost like he is going through the stages of grief.
Right.
Where in the first game he was, grieving, and obviously he's still grieving, and I will tell you right now, he will be grieving for the rest of his life. I know what it's like to lose a parent.
Of course. Nobody gets over that. It'll hang, especially given the very violent nature of which he lost his father.
Yeah. But he's beginning to come out of it, and you're beginning to see kind of like what I imagine he would have been like before his father died, and you're getting to see that personality beginning to shine, and you're beginning to see him grow. Like the end of Shenmue 3, for anyone who hasn't watched it, go back and watch the VODs, because I'm going to be spoiling stuff.
It's a foregone conclusion. When we say Post-Mortem, we tear these games apart, and if you don't know what we're talking about, you just stop and go watch now.
But when Ren brings Mr. Shu and the Shrine Maiden and Grandmaster Bei, who is honestly one of my favorite characters in Shenmue 3. He is so awesome. He's such a badass. All of his cutscenes are badass. I love him. Anyway, but when all of his friends show up, and he's actually heartened by that. Like, can you imagine like Ryo from Shenmue 1 kind of being like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Let's go get him. No, he would have been like, I'm doing this myself. This is between me and Londi. And it goes to show how much he's grown over the realistically year or two since his father passed. So
I think even back in the day, you could get a feel that this grief and anger and this just bloodthirsty need of revenge just hangs over you like a cloud. And you see that start to dissipate a little bit in 2, though the pace of 2 gets a little frenetic towards the end, that there's not a whole lot of time to sit and marinate on these feelings. But I do think that they were really successful in 3 at just showing that cloud finally start to evaporate. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it will never go away. Even in the best of circumstances, when you lose a parent to natural causes, you still lose a parent, and their absence in your life is a mark on your heart that never goes away. But when they're ripped from your life like that, that's even worse. But
like in front of your face,
it's like you said, we're starting to get an idea of maybe what Yo was like before all that, but also too, he's growing. He's becoming a young man that has to survive. He doesn't have an Ine-san or a Fukuhara back home to protect him. He's got a lovely support group here in China, but it's still an unknown land where he's only just starting to feel comfortable. But I think Corey Marshall does such a fantastic job at selling that well, and not just to him, but also the credit of the writing. I thought he was very well written here. And I think that his relationship with Shenhua and Rin are the things easily that I liked about the story of Shenmue 3 the most.
I definitely liked seeing him kind of cut loose a little bit and play face off. I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was nice to see him just kind of be silly.
Had me fucking howling the first time I saw it. I think I might have been casually looking at something else, but watching you play this, and then as soon as you started doing that, I just stopped. It was like when Sarah first heard the first time, and she just died. That was how I felt about Face Off. There's a lot of cool discourse going on in the chat, and I don't want to leave it ignored. Cancer, you are seen, you are felt, you are heard, and welcome. Can you imagine how much easier 3 was to make than 1? Just communicating the vision to people must have been so much easier. Oh yeah, without all the bureaucratic red tape of being at a big company like Sega, but also just having 18 years to sit around and really dwell on where do we want this game to go gives you a clarity that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
And Super Rice says, it seems like the biggest thing that they're trying to instill in Ryo is patience, right? From beginning, he's always been so quick to rush in, like that first fight with Landi, and then he gets beaten one hit. Same with Shenmue 2 and 3. He has to learn patience. And you definitely see that starting to grow in his personality, too.
And it is a gradual thing, because that is what he was being taught in 2 by catching the leaves mid-fall. You have to learn how to be patient and wait. And I think he's taking the lessons he's learning to heart, and that is a very cool way to see the character grow. And I'm a fan of that. Super Rai asked, he said, it'll probably end with Ryo having the option to kill or forgive Landi. I don't think it will be that simple.
I don't know that it would be an option.
Yeah. So talking about how I think personally it's going to go down, I theorize that one of the most interesting mysteries of Shenmue is not the supernatural nature of the mirrors or the floating sword or the lasers, but Iwao's last words, which were to keep your friends close. And we learn in Shenmue 2, and we learn a little bit more in Shenmue 3, that he was very, very good friends with Landi's father. So knowing it was Landi who killed him, and he chose his final words to Ryo to keep your friends close, makes me wonder what happened to him. Why did he get to the point where he had to die? Did the mirrors corrupt him somehow? And Iwao felt that he had to kill him? I mean, we don't know these things, but these are the kind of things that I think about. And was the lesson that he was was he saying that he felt that he could have been closer to Long Sunxiao to maybe save him from the fate that he ended up with, which was dying? And then Landi ended up being raised by the Chiyo men, and the rest is history. So that, to me, I think when it finally comes down to that final confrontation, the final one, it's not really going to be as simple as either, kill or forgive. There's going to be a lot more to it. I don't know what that will be, but I think there's a lot to think about there.
I'm of the opinion, when it comes to kill or forgive, I think like you've kind of alluded to, we have a lot of unanswered questions here, and there are some certain choices that Iwao sought to impress on Ryo before he passed. We don't know that Iwao actually did kill Jiao Sun or not. We know that that's what Landi believes. But it feels like that's really complicated. And what I would have liked to see out of Shenmue 3, talking to people that have been around these two individuals, Iwao and Jiao Sun, is what happened? Surely somebody got to... I mean, we do talk to people, and they do talk about it, but they don't really... They focus more on, like, telling us a story about this fucking bridge. And I don't mind it. It does give... it is kind of giving this game some grounding that I would have wanted, like, in the more real-life based settings of 1 and 2. But I really would have liked to see more talked about this story, and not just Iwao and Jiao Sun, but Landi is a plot device. And what I think that it's more understandable in the first 2 games, because you can barely stay on his trail. You're just trying to find the guy. But you would think by the time you get to China and get to talk to people that know more about the Jiaos, that you would learn more about Landi. What was it like? What was it, knowing that his father died at the hands of people like the Chiyomin? What was it, that kept him sticking around with the Chiyomin? Would his father have been proud of the son that he became, murdering people for this, cause of bringing back the Qing dynasty? Or would his father have been mournful or even ashamed at seeing what his son became? And how would that make Landi feel thinking about those things? Yeah. But we don't know, because the game just treats Landi like a carrot and a stick that we're constantly chasing, but just can't get close enough to find out about. And I think that that's a misstep. And I would like for us to say that we know a little bit more about what his motives are. And I think that could have been explored in greater detail than maybe some of the fun little diversions that we saw in the course of the game. And really, the story is the most bittersweet part of Shenmue 3. I knew it would be going into this. Just knowing that this story wasn't going to see a conclusion put a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm like, I don't know that I'm ready to play this game. Life is short, and the older that we get, the less willing I am to get invested in things that don't have a clear path towards the end. And even though it's Yu Suzuki, one of the great founding fathers of modern video gaming, right up there with Shigeru Miyamoto, Shenmue 3 was not something that was to be taken for granted. This was a second chance that a lot of other series haven't gotten, and probably would never get, if not just for the tenacity of Suzuki and his fans. And what I really would have liked to have seen out of this was something close to a conclusion, or at least tying up some of these ends in a way that made me feel satisfied that if we needed another game, we would really see the end by 4. And I'm sorry to say, I don't see that here. And Shenmue 3 is a very ironic game in that regard, because Shenmue as a whole really is about the journey of seeing these stories unfold, the journey of just day-to-day life in China and Japan, and just watching Ryo grow before our eyes. And that is wonderful. The games are really successful in making us invested in that. And life in general really is just like that. It is a lot of journey. But even in life, there are destinations that we reach. It's little destinations here and there. And there is something, and I said this too during the last gameplay, like the storyline stream for Shenmue 3, there's something of a hubris here that I think prevented them from just really committing to finishing the story. I think they could have done it here. Maybe they wouldn't have, there would have been some plot holes and some untied knots, but Shenmue 4 isn't looking like a sure thing. As much as I would love to be wrong. Let me just be clear. The minute that they announce Shenmue 4, I want you to come to ValiantGamers.com and say, "Ha ha, random, you were wrong." I want to be wrong. But the sales numbers don't lie, and the tenor of the reviews gives us a gaming populace that may not be so hungry for nostalgia, but want to see something that everybody can enjoy. And not sticking that landing with Shenmue 3, I thought was a real missed opportunity.
Can I say something?
You could say a lot of things. Go for it.
You completely blasted past where I wanted to go. You're way ahead of me. So let's dial back.
Okay.
Going back to the story and talking about the story and my thoughts on the story. One of the things that was interesting and that I would like to note and bring to the forefront is in the last cutscene, there was actually an error in translation that was very interesting. When you're talking with Shenhua's father, he mentions the Cliff Temple where the mirrors were kept for many years. In the cutscene, Ryo says, "Oh, that's where we found the scroll." The scroll, if you remember, you found in the hidden basement of your family's dojo in Shenmue 1.
Mm-hmm.
So what did he mean by where we found the scroll? You didn't find the scroll in the Cliff Temple. The Cliff Temple was actually depicted on that scroll. And so that was a clue as to why the Geomen were. So that's where they're heading when you see them at the end on the Great Wall of China. They're heading for the Cliff Temple because it was what was depicted on that scroll. So that was kind of an interesting, unfortunate error in translation there because we didn't find it in the Cliff Temple. See, I had this whole thing that I was trying to think of that I had planned to say.
Yeah, it just, like, I see what you're saying, but it still plays into my point that there's just so many threads being laid around with a lack of focus and clarity. And this third game should have been the chance to wrap some of those up instead of laying yet more things down for us to try to follow, as if it's just to be assumed that there's going to be a fourth game because this one's going to be so successful. I am just disappointed that that's the direction that Suzuki went.
No, I don't disagree with you. But if we're just going to move on and talk about like this instead, we can. So I think that when I first saw Shenmue 3, I'm like, this will be his only chance to finish this. I hope he just takes the chance and does it.
That would have been my hope too, yeah.
It became pretty evident that, especially by the time I finished, that was not going to happen. I was disappointed, and I'm still sad, but if I look at his history and his vision for Shenmue as a whole, condensing a six-game series into 3 games would be a little bit. He would have to change what he was planning on writing, which again he could have done. He absolutely could have done that. But I cannot help but admire his tenacity and his unwillingness to compromise his vision.
Right.
Yes, it is a little bit of hubris. But I also admire his commitment, and I also believe that if there's anyone who can do it, it will be Yu Suzuki, because he eventually, with the help of many fans, made Shenmue 3 happen. So hopefully Shenmue 4 will. The reviews were not they're mixed. But overall the game sold, according to, everyone who talks about those kind of things, according to sales numbers, they were fine. They were not bad. It didn't tank. It did not fail. They were fine. They weren't it wasn't a smash hit, but it did probably better than you think it did.
Maybe. And I do not mean to imply, and I don't think you take this feeling, but anybody that's watching, I do not imply Yu Suzuki has any bad faith here. I believe, like you said, he's a man with a vision, and he wants to do what he can to get that vision out there uncompromised. As a creator, any creator can sympathize with that. I do just think, though, I was kind of thinking that with almost 20 years to sit and ruminate and think and dwell on everything that led up to Shenmue, the making of Shenmue, and what he would like to see and do with it, there had to be some forethought that we need to tighten this up a little bit. And we saw that with the gameplay. The gameplay was a great distillation of it. I just would have also, at the same time, liked to see that with the story.
Yeah. Your points are very valid, but I do disagree in that it should have ended with 3. Their choice to extend it out at least another game, I understand, and I support him in his choice to do that. I hope that we get a Shenmue 4. I don't think it's as hopeless as you think it is. One thing I would like to ask everyone who is watching, if you liked this stream, if you liked watching me play it, buy the game. Buy the game
and the soundtrack.
And the soundtrack, and leave a good review. If you read the reviews, I did see that you got it, Grimace. I appreciated that. But I would definitely recommend buying the game and leaving a review, because that's the kind of thing that they look at. There is I would love there to be a Doolin plushie. I would buy it if there was one. So if you're listening, Limited Run, make one. But anyway, what was I gonna say? I was saying, I lose my train of thought so easily. It's gone.
It'll come back. So yeah, I didn't mean to jump too far ahead, but it's been a burden that's been weighing on my heart prior to going into Shenmue 3. And I was hoping for a little succor in that regard. It's just that, I will say, my overall impression of the game is so much more positive than what I expected. I didn't expect Shenmue 3 was a fly-by-night hack job operation here, but the fact that I found watching you play it as satisfying as I did take me aback a little bit, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think, I was just so happy to watch it every night that I had a chance. Anytime I missed a VOD, I did go back and rewatched it as soon as I could. And however much I would have loved to see a more definite ending here, I do respect the chance that Yu Suzuki's got the massive tanuki balls that he does to just see this thing through, because there's just very few other creators that I think could have made this possible.
Yeah. But yeah, as someone with a little bit of an artistic inclination, I respect the hell out of anyone who is not going to compromise the vision, no matter what. I was used to life without Shenmue 3 for a long, long time. I had accepted that Shenmue 3 was never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
When it did happen, I was pleasantly surprised. If Shenmue 4 never happens, I will be sad, But I will also be glad that a vision was not compromised, and I will be okay with there not being an end to the series. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of zen with it.
So this is kind of a thought, and I'm posing this to you, but also posing this to chat. I think the closest thing I can think of that's most appropriate to the scenario where a vision had to be compromised to see an end was Game of Thrones, a series that started off truly strong, endured rather strong for a long time, but unfortunately reached a point where they ran out of runway and the showrunners were eager to get out and they gave us a conclusion, but one that was less than ideal, I think most people would say, having seen it. So what I'm trying to say is this. Would you rather have a Shenmue 4 that somehow gets put out but feels maybe rushed in it and it shows, but gives you a definite conclusion, or would you rather the series end where it is now and not have that conclusion at all?
I would rather have it end here and not have it end at all.
Fair enough. I'm curious to see what chat has to say about that. And I don't know the answer to that question. I just will say I did enjoy this experience a lot more than maybe my fears had initially said. I don't know if Kickstarter is going to be the way for Shenmue 4 to happen, but I mean, I think it's safe to say if they did do a Kickstarter campaign, you would probably support it day one.
I would, but they've already said that it's not going to be a Kickstarter. They're really pushing for an actual partner, to partner with Suzuki's company to make it and have a proper budget to it. Their Shenmue Dojo, which is one of the biggest Shenmue sites out there. Did you ever read that thing, by the way?
No, I'm so sorry, Nicole. This has been such a crazy week.
I know.
Yeah.
Could
you sum it up for me?
I would say go ahead and read it. It says why
read the manual, noob.
It says why Shenmue 4 could happen. Let me actually put the link in chat so everyone can read it. I thought it was a really well thought out argument as to why Shenmue 4 was a lot more.
Maybe why don't we read it together?
Okay.
Here on stream, if you don't mind.
As long as you don't mind doing the reading my
I don't mind. Don't mind at all.
Okay.
As long as you don't mind listening to me prattle on and on like I've been for the last 2 hours, which you've been very patient. Thank you very much.
In this case, I don't mind. If you want to, do you still have the link? Do you want to pull it up, or do you want me to?
Would you pull it up for me, please?
Okay.
And just pop that in chat, and we'll all have a look at that together. Not lost on me. I also had a thought too. I was going to say why you did that, and like a train, It just went bye-bye train of thought. I barely knew you.
Doesn't being in your 40s just isn't that the best?
I love it. I love everything about that. The ending of Game of Thrones is the reason why I never watched the series. After hearing how bad it ended, it completely soured me on why. And Grimace, that's such a fucking shame because I would say 75% of that show is so good. And the performance,
first 3 seasons. Oh, mwah.
I would even say more than that, but yeah, definitely. The first 3 seasons are super good. I think the middle part of the show is strong as well, and we have such great performances, launched careers. It's just a shame. That's tough. Like, I get it. If you don't want to watch it, I totally understand it. It just sucks having seen it and having such good feelings and then just watching it go bye-bye right there at the end.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I cannot find that link.
Let's see. I'm sorry. I promise you we're a bunch of goddamn professionals here. We've done this once or twice.
I was not prepared. I was not prepared for this. I'm sorry. This is like when you told me to stop my entire stream and watch a forklifting video.
and that went so well for us. Am I right? Weird. Yeah. Did you send this to me directly or put it in our admin chat?
No, I I'm pretty sure I sent it to you directly. Hold on. To Wandervox's point, he says Random's career as an audiobook reader began. So Random, you have to read this in your ASMR voice. I'm kidding, please don't.
I'm telling you, if I thought I could get away with reading a Chuck Tingle book on stream, I would do it, because those books are just madness. I'm sorry, I can't find your link.
We have been talking about Uncharted Waters Online way too much.
I'm even just doing the search, this is folks, we discussed this during our anniversary stream for Valiant Gamers, but this is one of the reasons we went with an actual forum versus doing all this on Discord. Is Discord search sucks so hard. It sucks. Yes, it blows goats. It's bad.
Yeah. Yes, it does. All right, let me just find what I was talking about, like, by searching on a search engine. Hold on a second.
So Shenmue is a tree. Skunkworks. It's the sedge tree. It's the tree. The Shenmue tree is the tree that you see at Shenhua's house, and Shenhua is the sedge flower, the bloom of that tree. As to what the great significance of the Shenmue tree is, I don't know. It's just it's that vision that Ryo has of Shenhua at the beginning of Shenmue 1, that along with his desire for revenge kind of inspires his journey.
Okay, I found it. Let me get the link.
Appreciate you doing this. I feel bad not having a chance to read it sooner.
All right, here we go.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to pull this up now at shenmuedojo.com.
Plugging Shenmue Dojo too. Honestly, it's a great website and honestly a pretty good forum too.
We will probably never see their original vision, in my opinion. The original vision is Virtua Fighter RPG, the way we see it in the chapter arts. The story beginning on the first chapter art on the left in the Yokosuka chapter, and the ending in the last chapter art on the down right of the Shijiang chapter. And the order of the original vision would probably be chapters arts from left to right, up to down. It's just kind of weird to follow, but even Yu Suzuki decided to change that when he did Shenmue 2. Chapter 4 is Shanghai and Suzhou. Yu Suzuki said that in Shenmue 4, Ryo, Shenhua, and Ren are going to Suzhou. In Shenmue 2, Yu Suzuki decided to change his original vision. The Guilin chapter is chapter 5. But what did Yu Suzuki do? He decided to put some pieces of Chapter 5 in the second game, and to me, this was a beautiful decision. To me, Guilin is part of one of my favorite moments, not only in Shenmue, but entire gaming history. Yeah, I would agree with that. In the Dojo Phantom River Stone interview, Yu Suzuki said that even though he thought about putting the location in Shenmue 2 in Luoyang, so Luoyang is one of the ancient capitals of China, most famously described in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. But I digress. In other words, even Yu Suzuki changed some things in his original Virtua Fighter RPG vision when he was developing Shenmue 2. Shenmue is 80% of Chapter 2. The remaining 20% is pieces of Chapters 4, 5, and 6. And Shenmue 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm not against Yu Suzuki changing some things and having to cut some things to end this epic game series in 4. I just don't think the conclusion of Shenmue will be satisfying this way. But as I said in the other thread, one thing is certain. We would finally have the ending of Shenmue in game form. To me, it wasn't a mistake that Shenmue 3 is similar to the first game, especially in Bailu Village, that it feels like a second home to Ryo, a calm time in Ryo's journey. But do I think that Shenmue 4 needs a slow pace too? No. I think Shenmue 4 needs to be similar to Shenmue 2 in relation to pacing, location, story, and much more, even if Yu Suzuki decides to end it in Shenmue 5. Shenmue is not a success. In a perfect world, I would love to see Shenmue till Shenmue 7, like Yu Suzuki mentioned in his Phantom Riverstone interview. Yes, of course. I would even love to see spin-off games, for example, where Rin is the protagonist. That would be pretty neat. I would love to see the story this way, with all the locations, the way that Yu Suzuki really wanted, but sadly, realistically speaking, Shenmue till Shenmue 7 now is not the way to go. If in 5 more years we still don't have Shenmue 4, maybe even Yu Suzuki will decide it's time to release a manga or novel to conclude Shenmue in another 4. Yeah, that would probably be the most economical way to go. Yu Suzuki said it would be best for him and also for us to end Shenmue in Shenmue 5, and I agree with him. I don't think it's impossible for Yu Suzuki to make 4 and 5 and end this epic game series in a beautiful way. Right now, I still think it's possible. We will probably have Shenmue announcements of in game soon, and I can't wait to see what they're planning for Shenmue. We have Shenmue announcements to look forward to, and to me, that's very good. They even said next phase of Shenmue. Let's hope for good news and good announcements.
If you look at the date of that post, it was December of last year, so not that long ago.
Not that long away. So I mean, look, Suzuki's he's not a shyster. He's not trying to pull wool over our eyes. He really does have a vision, and I do respect the fact that he's trying to see it through. I think it would be a mistake to aim for a Shenmue 5. I think 4 needs to be the one, especially unfolding in a place like if it does happen in Shanghai. I think that's a really great place to end. It almost kind of meets the cadence of the smallness of Dobuita with the grandness of Hong Kong, with the smallness of Bailu to the grandness of Niaowu in Shanghai. And me personally, this is just an opinion. This is not really a factor that's going to go into my review. I think not necessarily the element of forgiveness is an important theme in Shenmue, but I think for Ryo's journey to be complete, he should at least be given the option to spare Lan Di. Because the cycle of revenge is the whole reason this thing is going in the first place. We don't know why Zhao Hongsun died. We just know that he died, and a child lost their father, and sought revenge and justice in the only way that they knew how. But we know that revenge is not real justice. And I think Ryo's ultimate character arc is making peace with that, however angry and hurt he is at losing his father, because would his father want him to be consumed with this never-ending revenge? It would just hollow him out.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to like where you really should pay attention to his last words. Like, if Iwao had been closer, would this have even started? And I think he was trying to tell his son in his final words that he would have to, by keeping his friends close, he would be able to kind of find that peace and the balance that he needs to get past that cycle.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have any other points that you wanted to touch on before we lay bare our neat little number?
I would just like to let you know that I've been staring at the stream this entire time, and I just finally now noticed Julin's face nuzzling into Shenhua's arm.
I was wondering when somebody was going to point that out. When I did not have as much time this week to prepare for the stream as I wanted. So as soon as I got home from work, I literally ran. I said, "Hello, I'm home," and ran back here to get started. And I'm so surprised that nobody noticed this sooner, because that was a gag from the last Post-Mortem, and I'm like, I need to take him out. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. It'll be even better if you leave him in. And now I feel really vindicated. I will say sound alerts have been unmuted for quite a while, and I'm surprised you guys have been listening to us so patiently. If you want to do a now is the time.
But no, I mean, I think I pretty much covered everything. I'm ready to go to
yes,
sports.
Yes, let the phlegm flow through you.
Eating a meal, a succulent Chinese meal.
Sorry. I do also want to go back while I'm thinking. I saw people talking about potential Doolin merch. I do also want a body pillow that when you hug it, it goes, "We make a great team," and "We're the perfect pair." Don't you think? I think that would be amazing. And I've said this before. I will say it again. I just hope that Doolin has someone at home that takes care of him.
I get it. Dylan is your wife. He's not your waifu. He's your husband.
My husband, though.
Yeah, so what we're saying is for Valiant Gamer Christmas...
You need a spanking!
For Valiant Gamer Christmas, we all chip in and buy Nicole a giant Dylan body pillow.
Please.
Because Destian will absolutely love that, I'm sure.
You know, he might.
Hey. So, yeah,
he ain't even jealous.
Yeah, the duality of Shenmue's journey and its lack of a destination has been weighed on my heart, and I just want to thank you guys for letting this be my group therapy session to get all of that out. But I am going to mute the sound alerts real quick before so we can get into just finally get this review. Would you like to give your rating, or shall I?
What the hell? I'll go first.
Hey.
My review is that it is not going to be reviewed as high as Shenmue 1. But
interesting.
It is, well, I mean, obviously Shenmue 1 is legendary, that there's not much that can take its place. It's probably in my top 3 games. But it does edge out Shenmue 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put it right at a nice even 4.
Nice. Very nice. I'm going to the forums right now. I'm pretty sure that I gave Shenmue 1 a 4. I think I gave it a 4. And
I believe you did.
And I gave Shenmue 2 a 3.5 due to that bewildering ending and also the overburdensome quick time events that just wouldn't quit, wouldn't stop, never stop. Are Lunar 1 and 2 your first 2 games? Those were the first games that you did for your games of the month, right, Nicole?
Yeah, so the Lunar franchise is probably, if I had to say Lunar in general, is probably my number 1 game out of sheer nostalgia alone. But honestly, I wouldn't be number 1 is Lunar 1, number 2 is Lunar 2. I would say just the Lunar series is in my top 3. Shenmue is in my top 3. I don't even know if I could really come up with a third one at the moment. So it's in my top 2. we'll put it that way. But no, Lunar is just kind of, it's my game, and there's nothing that will ever take its place. But Shenmue is, I can't think of really too many games that are better.
Shenmue is definitely, Shenmue 1 is in my top 10 for sure. I have a lot of games competing for those top spots, but of that's a lot of good games, and Shenmue is just right up there with them. The first one is just such a fucking mood, and it's fantastic. And despite my critical words about Shenmue 2, I did really enjoy that game, and was happy to have played it back in the day.
I know why you like Shenmue 2.
I mean, I know why you like Shenmue 2 as well.
Yeah!
Yeah! You'll never meet a woman the likes of her! And it's like, I didn't even get to listen to that full song until we did the Post-Mortem of 2, and God, that song just goes so hard. And the thing that I loved about hearing it in Shenmue 3 is you actually get to hear the whole song, and it's glory!
Yes.
But
you hear it in a couple places in Shenmue 3. Which
you do.
I like.
You do. I love it. Again, just really smart use of the assets that they already have so they can really focus on the things that need the most attention. Definitely good work in that regard. I want to give this game a 4 so bad. So freaking bad.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
I enjoyed greatly watching you play it. It looks like I would have a good time playing it. There's very little that I find incomplete in what we were given, and I think Shenmue 3, maybe not on a money scale, but is right up there in the top successes of what makes Kickstarter good. It is one of the great success stories of crowdfunding. When so many other projects don't make it through, I am happy that this one did. I'm happy that I got to experience this. And I will say, if we do get a Shenmue 4, I will not hesitate to play it like I hesitated to play this one. And in hindsight, I have a little regret waiting as long as I did to experience this. So I have to say thank you so much for bringing this to us and breaking my Shenmue 3 cherry. It's just that in spite of how good this game looks for the amount of money that they spent, in spite of me loving the music, in spite of me really liking the gameplay and enjoying this journey with Ryo and Shenhua and Ren, I almost feel like it's unfair, but just, again, the lack of completeness here is so deeply unsatisfying in a way that probably biases my view of this game. And I'll concede it. Maybe it's not fair, but it's there. And I just have to give it a 3.5 on that alone. But that is a strong 3.5. It is a game that I myself could see me playing it again. I mean, in short, look, it may not have been the wild success we would have wanted to guarantee further entries in the series. Maybe not the one to draw in fresh blood, but it stays true to its roots. It gives the fans like us everything we wanted and then some, and it is unabashedly itself and has just teeming with personality, and I greatly respect that. And even though the destination may not be in sight, I feel like you gave us one hell of a journey by bringing it to us in February, so thank you so much.
Can I just say that one of the reasons why I was looking forward to the Game of the Month series for Valiant gamers in general is because I wanted you to fucking watch Shenmue 3.
Well, how does it feel now that you finally did the thing?
I feel a little bit sad because you only gave it a 3.5.
Hey, you know, if Yu Suzuki has got to stick true to his convictions, I got to stick true to mine. I want to see this game finished. I want to see a Shenmue 4. I want to see more.
I want to see more. I want to see Shenmue 4 as well. So
if we can agree on nothing else, we can definitely agree on that.
I think it would be I think at this point it would be silly not to want a Shenmue 4, and I would not even mind if he found some way to end it with Shenmue 4. But if this was the story that he wanted to tell and he would not have had a chance to finish it in a way that was satisfying to him with Shenmue 3, then I am happy that he did not finish it, and I would rather have him not finish it in game form and maybe finish it with like a graphic novel or something like that.
Hey, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I will never be sad to see more Shenmue. So I had a blast watching you play this. If it was as much fun to watch, I'm sure it's about as much fun to play and then some. Yeah. And really, we just got so much fucking game for that, you know, that total 20 million. Like, I can't get over that figure still in my mind. There's just so much to do.
Yeah, there is a lot to do. They gave you no shortage of things to keep you entertained. Yes, they could have had, you know, Space Harrier. Yes, they could have had, you know, hang on, other arcade games. Yes, the arcade experience could have been better, but there was still so much other things for you to do. And the world was... this is actually something I did want to mention that I didn't get a chance to mention. So I'm going to go back and mention it now. I think I mentioned in the Post-Mortem for 2 is one of the things I did not like as much about the world is that it was bigger than Shenmue 1, but it also was smaller because the world was not as interactive.
Right.
So you were going through Hong Kong, but you couldn't really explore the only thing you could explore were the streets. In Shenmue 1, you could pretty much go into every business as long as they were open. Like, there were business hours, so you had to go in during the right time of day, but you could go pretty much in every single building, and there were people there that had, lives. They did not have that so much in 2, and I feel like that they found a good balance in 3, where you could go into every store, and every store owner had a personality. There was like a vibrancy and a life to Niawu, and that was lacking in 2, but they found that in 3, and it reminded me a lot more of 1. So I
completely agree with you. That I think that was one thing that was really successful, was not just that broadness of scope, but also that attention to detail. It really did capture it really. That's what I was kind of saying earlier. It refined everything that made those games great, and really married them together in a way that just. I mean, it definitely, even though it's almost 20 years between these games, this game feels just as much in line with the other 2 games as a sequel just 2 years after the original game would have come out. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I, even like right down to the fact that like they had this amazing sushi place that you could have, like, make some nice sushi.
Oh my God. Yes. It was so wonderful.
My sister, she's like really cute, but she's kind of emo, and I love the personality, and I wanted to mention that, and I didn't get a chance. So while I was thinking of it, I figured I would mention it.
And anyway, one time at sushi camp, I stuck a piece of nigiri in my pussy. Oh, moving on.
More clipping.
Moving on.
But let's see. I was gonna say something.
Well, I mean, how do you move on from nigiri and the pussy? That's a tough act to follow.
I know.
Anyway, definitely enjoyed this. This will be the final game for now in our game of the month series. As we have discussed in other streams, we are looking to shake up our format a little bit in a way that allows us to continue bringing you guys games, but we can do so in a way that plays nice with our real life schedules as we focus on ourselves. But if you guys think you're getting rid of me, I'm not going anywhere. One thing I am really excited to bring you guys is maybe once I do get a hold of my Mr. Pi, I would love to do a couple streams a month where I play games that you guys request straight from the Mr. Pi, and or maybe like a roulette kind of format too. Just to try it out, get comfortable with it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Mister is a hardware emulation solution that Cellbake, our third and wonderful administrator, has brought us a couple of times. He showed that off during his Mega Man and Star Fox playthroughs. So we've been talking, me and him have been talking about this off stream. I'm very excited to get my Mr. Pi and find any excuse to use it.
Well, I ordered one too.
I know. So we're all getting the pies. It's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to flexing that. Nicole, what do you have planned for us coming up in future Valiant Gamer streams?
I have a couple things in mind. I would like to put my first request into you, though. I want you to finish Half-Life 2.
As I was working on getting the stream all ready to go this evening, I have the folder there with all my stream assets, and I do want to finish it. I enjoyed what I played very much.
Good. All right. That being said, I definitely want to play, speaking of Lunar, I definitely want to play the remaster coming out.
Oh, yeah.
See what that's all about. Have mixed feelings about a non-working designs Lunar. Looking forward to see probably a more traditional and faithful translation, but also going to miss that jankiness and charm of the working designs.
I mean, without working designs and Jay Leno, where else will we get all of our Bill Clinton timely jokes?
Right. And where am I going to get my John Truitt fix? I mean,
exactly.
I We'll see.
You should
We'll
see.
see.
You should see Nicole. Nicole is like that meme of Wolverine laying in bed, staring longingly at that picture, and that picture is just John Truitt.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
So,
but
not to totally commit myself here, but I do know a long time ago when we were asking people on the forums, what games would you like to see for the Game of the Month series? Cancer specifically requested Suikoden. And as luck would have it, there's actually a Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster that just came out recently. I don't know when I am going to be able to play that, but I do know that I really want to play that on stream for you guys.
yeah, that would be awesome. Another game that I want to play, and I need to see if it's going to freaking work on GOG. But Zork Grand Inquisitor, I've mentioned that a few times.
Yeah.
But you haven't played that game, right?
I have not, but I've
Are
heard.
you familiar?
I am familiar with the Zork series more or less in general.
Okay, more or less in general. I feel like I love the Zork series, and the graphic games are pretty good. Zork Nemesis is incredibly moody and incredibly atmospheric. Probably not going to stream that one first, even though I probably should, but I probably won't. Grand Inquisitor is a lot more accessible to anyone who is familiar with the series or not familiar with the series. You'll probably get more enjoyment out of it if you are familiar with it, but a lot of the jokes are very timely. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
As to what's going on in the world. If nothing else, just look at the title, Zork Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah, the Zork games definitely have a self-referentialness, that's not a word, but it is now, and a sense of humor that are kind of unique unto themselves. I am looking forward to seeing those unfold and watching you play that.
I love old school FMV games, and that is probably... It has some great actors that you'll recognize. Very nostalgic. I think everyone will enjoy it. That is the one where you will be eaten by Gru, and it is true in Zork Grand Inquisitor. If you go anywhere that it's dark, completely dark, you get like one warning, and then if you stay there, you will be eaten by a Gru. And that's just the way it is.
I mean, in all fairness, the game told you. It said it, and
exactly.
it meant it.
Yeah. I used to actually have a t-shirt when I was a lot younger that said, like, it is dark. You are most likely to be eaten by a Gru. Actually, Adam bought that for me. So,
Adam.
Adam and I are old Zork buddies. I would always go over to his house and we would play Zork together. So, fond memories.
Well, we would love for him to come back and watch another stream with us.
Yeah.
We floated this idea during the anniversary stream, but this has been stuck in my brain, guys. I would love to fire up some of these old trivia games for like the NES, Genesis, Super Nintendo, and have us play them together as a group. I know we do a lot of the heavy lifting on the streaming and stuff here, and I know we've got some pretty shy boys and girls among us, but I would love it if we streamed us getting together in Discord chat and streaming us play these games together. I think it would be a lot of fun. It would be a good little community building thing. I have a soft spot for old outdated trivia games and saying, hey, what's aged well and what hasn't.
In Mega Man Legends.
That, like the old NES Jeopardy games. Oh my god, one of my favorite tool assisted speedruns is one of Family Feud for Super Nintendo of all things, because of the way that game engine parses text. You can write these crazy sentences to answer Family Feud prompts. The game is just checking to make sure, though, that somewhere in your long-ass weird sentence that you have the right letters in the right order. So the tasker would take advantage of this and write some hilarious things. Anyway, so things like that. I think that they're quirky, and it would be something fun to do as a community. And lastly, at some point, I do want to bring to stream Cuphead. Me and Scott have talked about this in chat. I was like, Scott, I would love for you to get on, and you too, Nicole. I would love you guys to get into Discord chat with me as I just lose my fucking shit trying to beat this damn near impossible, adorable, beautiful game called Cuphead. It's a big throwback to Fleischer cartoons and Contra, and it pisses me off so much.
Oh, I've played it. So yeah, no, that should be a lot of fun. And for anyone, it is sad. I am sad that the Game of the Month series, as we know it for now, is going to be ending. But for anyone who is concerned that we are not going to be streaming, that is not going to happen, because I really enjoy bringing games to you guys and hanging out with you, because you're a fantastic group, and I don't want to go anywhere. That being said, definitely watch the forums.
Absolutely.
We'll be posting a lot about what we're going to be streaming on the forums. So,
where pray tell would one find these forums?
Are you okay?
I don't know. I completely forgot, Nicole. Can you tell me where to find these forums?
ValiantGamers.com.
Wow, that's wonderful. Because I can't read, apparently, which is a great asset you want when you go to text forum. But yeah, look, I toot our horn all the time, and I'll keep on tooting and cranking our community hog here. But we've got a great little community. We would love to see you guys be a part of it if you're not already, and if you are, thank you so much for all your support. Just because we're changing the format of our streams does not mean you're going to see us stream any less, and I do look forward to the freedom that being a little bit looser with this will give us. And I know when I mentioned I was going to take a little bit of a break from streaming towards the end of last year, I'll just tell you now, in spite of everything going on, wildly gesticulating everywhere, I feel a lot mentally better, and in some ways physically better than I did about 3 or 4 months ago. And though I am a little bit busier now than I have been, and there are still some things that I need to focus on, I do still want to find time to be a part of the streams, because it's a lot of fun, and when I don't do it, I miss it.
Yeah, it's been incredibly creatively fulfilling for me. And I've talked to you about this before, just having that outlet where I can talk with friends about games that I love, and create these streams, and with all of the assets that you've made that are so fantastic. And you have made this so much fun and so easy to get into. So kudos to you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I don't have any intention of stopping soon, but I guess it'll be nice to take a little bit of a break for now. But
yeah, definitely keep posted on the forums, because if there's something that we plan on doing, that'll be the first place that you know it. Do keep posted tomorrow, because I will have you guys our Team Valiant Gamers picks that will be a surprise to pretty much everyone.
I am going crazy, wanting to know what you picked.
I think it'd be worth the wait. So you guys keep posted there. I'm not done with streaming in the long term, but I am just about done for tonight. What do you say we wrap this bad boy up?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, chat, for showing up and showing out. Love having you guys here. We do this for you. So do we have a stream plan for this coming Monday?
Not that I...
You think we want to maybe take a little bit of a week off to refresh ourselves?
Maybe, possibly.
Okay.
We'll talk about it, but I will let people know if I have any ideas. It's like I finished Night in the Woods, which was kind of like my supplemental game, so I don't really have anything like lined up right now. But I'll think about it. I will ponder on it. And
sounds good.
If you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the forums. I also want to take this last opportunity. If you have not yet purchased Shenmue 3 and you've enjoyed watching this stream, please consider buying it.
Yes, please. Let them know that you care, because if you want to see a Shenmue 4, I certainly do. This is the way.
Yes.
And I will also post a link to the Bandcamp, because they do have the soundtrack there, and in spite of my minor quibbles with some of the audio mixing, it is a great soundtrack. It is a lossless Flack soundtrack and show your love and support for them. But I'm going to give us one final Delin here to wrap this up. This is Random Encounter.
This is Althena.
And I hope you guys have a wonderful night.
Good night.